respected guests, and dear colleagues. My name is Ponti Moletsani. I'm the CEO of Salaamedia. On behalf of the station, we'd like to welcome you. It is an honor to welcome you, you all to all this important seminar on Sudan. At Salaamedia, we firmly believe in the power of humanitarian journalism, giving voice to those who are often silenced and creating platform for dialogue that can lead to awareness, understanding, and ultimately peace. Today's gathering reflects that commitment. Sudan is facing one of the gravest humanitarian catastrophes of our time. Millions are displaced, families torn apart, lives shattered, and the suffering continues as the gun refuses to fall silent. It is our collective duty to call for an end to the violence, to insist on silencing the guns, and to advocate for peace, dignity, and justice for the people of Sudan. We are truly blessed this morning to have with us a distinguished panel. Allow me to begin by welcoming our keynote speaker, former Ambassador Welile Nhlapo, whose vast experience and knowledge on Sudan and African peace processes bring invaluable insight to today's discussion. Thank you so much. We are equally privileged. Thank you so much for that. We are equally privileged to have as our moderator, Professor Amira Osman, a Sudanese, South African architect, researcher, academic, activist, and author, whose work and voice stand as a bridge between scholarship, activism, and lived experience. We look forward to a rich and meaningful dialogue today, one that goes beyond the headlines to the heart of the Sudanese struggle, and one that reaffirms our shared humanity. I would also like to acknowledge our esteemed panelists, Dr. Osman Nuraldin, Said Abdallah, Sarah Al-Nagar, Ibrahim Al-Sheikh, Rasha Abdallah Mohammed Sharif, Dr. Abdul Karim Al-Goni, Khalid Abdu Dahab, Ramadan Ahmed Birima, Dr. Bashir Osman. Thank you, and may this seminar serve as a small step towards peace and justice for Sudan. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome former Ambassador Welile Nhlapo to the podium. Thank you so much.
Good morning. Good morning. I was getting worried. No, thank you, Program Director, for the opportunity. Allow me, first of all, to thank the organizers of this dialogue for the invitation. The venue of the workshop is very symbolic to what I've been requested to speak about, the Sudan conflict, a view from South Africa. There can be no view from South Africa without any reference to Nelson Mandela and what he has taught us and said, not only about the Sudan, but the need for a peaceful resolution of conflicts. Let me declare that I feel honored and humbled by this invitation, but I also accept it as a privilege and a duty to do so. Unknown to many people, I was the first South African ambassador to the Sudan, accredited out of Ethiopia, where I also served as permanent representative to the Organization of African Unity. OAU then. That was in 1995. I was also accredited to Eritrea, Djibouti, Eritrea and Djibouti, sorry. I later dealt with the Sudan from our Ministry of Foreign Affairs then, now DIRCO, and the United Nations Department of Political Affairs as Director for Africa One. One of my instructions as ambassador to the United States was to continuously engage the State Department on the issue of Sudan. I am currently a senior political advisor at the court. I am referencing this to attest that the Sudan has been part of my diplomatic career and continues to be my passion. The history and geographical location of the Sudan defines its significance to international peace and security. It is therefore imperative that the current approach towards ending the conflict is informed by this reality. I know I am stating the obvious, but this is so fundamental that it must be underscored. Ironically, and I always find myself quarreling sometimes with people who don't want to listen or have got a problem of listening. Because it is a matter of historical record that the Sudan was the first African country to gain independence in 1959. The first. No, 1956, the first. Followed by Ghana. But every time, whenever we talk about the independence struggles in Africa, Ghana is referenced as the first. And there's a reason for that, which informs part of the problem that we continue to confront in the Sudan. I was privileged to support Mwalimu Nyerere in the Burundi peace process as South Africa's special envoy. And one of the quiet moments, as I would often do, take advantage, I would ask him questions, which I thought he might be able to answer. And one of them was this one. I asked him why, at that time, they, as the leadership of the continent, never recognized that historical fact. He gave me an explanation, I'm sure you all know it, in terms of how the Sudan became independent, where power was transferred to a section of the population at the expense of the rest. Same problem that we faced here in South Africa. But the British did the same thing in the Sudan. That's part of the problem that we continue to face today. And I think all the time, whenever we talk about the Sudan, we should keep in mind that historical reality. Because the Sudan is being described in many ways by many people. I've heard people saying that that's where the African and the Arab world converge. I'm not sure about the existence of these two worlds, but that's a phrase that is being used. But I think I understand what is meant by that, because it defines a peculiar and particular characteristic of the Sudan. It informs its demography and many aspects that remain unresolved and which will have to be attended to internally if there has to be peace and tranquility in the Sudan. It is therefore encouraging to see current attention paid to the conflict. Indeed, something is happening. But to what end? The missing critical factor is the central coordination of all the processes that have been initiated and a common understanding about the end game. Should be all be working towards the same objective. Otherwise, it means a lot of movement. As one South African diplomat once put it, a shifting of legs and no movement. So we want to see movement on this matter. It's a clear direction as to where to. And where to is where the people of the Sudan want to be. That should be our compass. There is an emerging consensus for all the stakeholders, particularly the two main armed forces, the Sudan Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces, together with the political parties and civil society groupings, that they must be part of any meaningful negotiated solution to the conflict in the Sudan. There is also an emerging consensus that the end game must be a return to a civilian government. This is a position that the international community is engaging in, a consensus that is emerging, that this is the end game, that there must be, in the end, a return to civilian rule. I was in the United Arab Emirates last week for an international conference looking at geopolitical tensions, and the Sudan was one of the countries that was under discussion. As the panel that was led by former Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, who stated very clearly the position of the political parties and civilian groupings that had met in Cairo and agreed on a way forward. And I think his statement resonated with the popular emerging consensus that I've referred to in terms of where and what should be the end game for the Sudan. The question, though, remains, how do we get there? The humanitarian disasters brought about by war and floods have led to growing appeals for a stop to the war and to the armed factions to allow humanitarian aid to reach the affected regions under their control. The human carnage and destruction of civilian infrastructure must stop. This call has been repeatedly made, but it has not been heeded. The issue, therefore, is how do we ensure that what is happening should not be treated like what we see happening to the Palestinians, which has become normalized in our TV screens. And every time there's an issue, an item about Palestine, sometimes I quarrel with my friends and they say, oh, if you're watching the news, yes, what has been happening? How many people died? I said, no. That is not the issue about Palestine. Indeed, people are dying because of many reasons, but that's not the only issue. So the scenes that we see on TV on Palestine and what we see about the Sudan has become normalized in a way in our psyche. It's etched in our minds. When you see footage, say, oh, the Sudan again, it cannot be. Because it means something has gone wrong about our human instincts. We should be cringing when we see such things and hear stories of tragedies, of families that have walked distances, fleeing attacks from armed men and finding themselves in refugee camps and still under attack and being starved to death. It's not normal. It cannot be acceptable. There is a new phrase that is being used nowadays, which I'm beginning to have a problem with. And what is called the new normal. The new normal. Interpreted in many different ways. It can put us to a situation where everything that goes wrong becomes normal. That is new, but it's normal. If the UN is being undermined and cannot discharge of its responsibility through the Security Council, that has also become normal. Is that part of the new normal that we have to live with? I don't think we should accept that, because that is not the reason why the multilateral system in particular exists, and the United Nations being the preeminent organization that has been discharged with the responsibility to deal with these issues. Because the three cardinal principles of the United Nations Charter, where there can be no compromise, there can be no variation to that reality. First amongst them is peace and security. That's why we have the Security Council, which is charged with the responsibility to guarantee international peace and security. Two is human rights, which largely has to do with governance. Any violation of any aspects of the human rights that are enshrined in the treaties of the United Nations that everybody is signed to will have to be respected. The Human Rights Council will have to assume its responsibility and make sure that all the issues that have to do with human rights and the violations of the human rights are attended to judiciously and with a much more sense of urgency. The human catastrophe that we've referred to earlier falls within this category. And there are many other instances and examples that we can cite which demands action to ensure that this particular pillar of the United Nations Charter stands firm and that we can all rally around it and make sure that with the institutions that are existing at the moment, there is an effective response to the challenges that we are facing. The third one is social and economic justice. There are a number of treaties, programs, and indeed institutions of the United Nations that have been established specifically to ensure the implementation of resolutions of the United Nations General Assembly and the Security Council in this regard. But the tragedy goes on. In the coming weeks, we'll be witnessing the convening of the United Nations at 80. How the United Nations is going to deal with these issues and map the way forward and come up with concrete actions and mechanisms to ensure that effectively these three pillars of the Charter remain standing and become a guide to action. But it is not a situation that must be left to the governments that are representing us in the United Nations. The opening sentence of the preamble of the United Nations Charter declares, "We, the people of the United Nations." It's not saying governments. It says, "We, the people of the United Nations." So we, as the people of the United Nations, will have to stand up and ensure that what is done in our name by those that we have elected to represent us reflects precisely our wishes and aspirations. So that it must not just be an issue of people coming together, taking decisions, and leave New York only to reconvene the following year and do nothing about it. I think the same thing goes with the AU. The AU is us. It is our organization. That's what the African Union is all about. It only has a headquarters in Addis Ababa to coordinate actions as custodians of the decisions that are taken by the summits of the heads of states and government and the Peace and Security Council of the AU. It is not the AU. It's simply a commission charged with the responsibility to coordinate their work and the implementation of the decisions of the heads of state and governments at summit. So sometimes when you talk about the AU or even the UN, we're talking about some organizations existing in New York and Addis Ababa, which really have nothing to do with our daily lives. And I think that is where our governments are getting away with the responsibility to account as to what is it that they do in the name of the people they represent in those institutions. I've worked within the AU from the time of the OAU, as I indicated earlier. I've worked at the United Nations. I was seconded there. I know what happens. And as long as we, the people, do not take the responsibility to ensure that decisions that are made are implemented, we're always going to find ourselves in a bit of trouble. The late Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Meles Zenawi, may his soul rest in peace, once made a statement at the closing of the AU. I think it was one of his last statements, if I'm not mistaken, where he was reminding the heads of states and government who were beginning to leave before the decisions that they have been negotiating and talking. We are all eager to leave for Bole Airport, which is the international airport in Addis Ababa, for your countries. And you leave your ministers and ambassadors behind to take decisions that you have agreed upon in our discussions. And you come back the following year, as you have just done, and you are asking the Commission where and when were these decisions they are referring to were taken. So that is our problem. We take decisions, forget about them. We go back to our countries, we don't report back to our people, we don't involve them in the implementation of those decisions, because those decisions are taken by us as a commitment to implement them in our own countries to make sure that our people feel protected by the decisions that we take. I think it's a critical point that we always have to take into consideration. because otherwise the situation will continue to go on in the manner in which things are happening at the moment. For the human carnage and the destruction of civilian infrastructure to stop, we must silence the guns. It sounds very attractive. It's a very good slogan to mobilize people to silence the guns. But how do we actually do that? The more we talk about it, the more guns are blazing, the more the sophistication of the weaponry is acquired and used. Drones have become a common factor. It's no more the normal warfare that we are used to. So we've got to another level, a very sophisticated level, where from a distance I can cause havoc and destruction. But for this to happen, this will entail a cessation of hostilities and all military and other support by external players. There can be no military solution to the conflict in Sudan. The sooner those who are engaged in armed conflict come to understand and accept this reality, the better for all of us and for them in particular. It is important to note that the Quad countries, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and the United States, have made this call in their recent meeting in Washington. They convened a meeting in Washington last week and made this call. The 6-point plan and the principles they have agreed upon signals hope towards a coordinated and concerted effort. Because all of these countries, in one way or another, are part of fueling that conflict in the Sudan through their actions and inaction. So for them to emerge with that call and the 6 points plan that they have come up with, I think it's something that needs to be welcomed, because it gives us a basis for a push towards a concrete path to seriously address the situation of the Sudan. Indeed, with the envisaged consultations involving African and Arab countries and institutions, I suppose institutions here would mean the Arab League, the AU, including IGAD, the United Nations, and all Sudanese relevant stakeholders. We might just be approaching a renewed era towards ending the war. Because those diplomatic actions are very critical if they are to be honest and well-meaning. And it's the kind of consultations that will avoid some of the unilateral actions that we've seen being taken in order to address similar situations. So we cannot allow and afford, once again, decisions to be taken outside of the continent and be imposed upon countries in conflict and the continent as a solution of take it or perish. The concept of peace through force has got no place in modern day conflict resolution. It spells a disaster. And for these countries to have taken this path, we feel encouraged that something, just something, might happen. We also believe that the United Nations General Assembly at 80 will provide the opportunity for the leaders to consult and consolidate all the various initiatives currently underway. It has become a feature of the General Assembly from time to time for countries that have got a common interest in a particular situation, conflict situation, to meet and discuss and engage in order to find a path towards the solution of that conflict and to strengthen the United Nations in ensuring that decisions that are taken are implemented. It happens all the time. It will happen again this time. This meeting that took place in Washington signals that, because it says starting in September, means this month, so it means something is going to happen in New York. We need to pay attention to what is happening there and what will come out of it, because it might just decide and seal our fate. And that's why it is important to make sure that those who will be participating in such meetings must make sure that at the end of the day, peace will prevail in the Sudan, and that the sovereignty and territorial integrity of that country will remain intact. The sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Sudan will remain intact. There is no way that partitioning of the Sudan will result in any form of peace and stability to that country. A formula must be found to make sure that the Sudan is governed through the will and by the will of the people, so that they can enjoy peace and prosperity. We employ you present here in this country, now talking to the Sudanese, to engage us as South Africans and mobilize us to support all efforts that will lead to peace and prosperity to the people of Sudan. We have our own issues and problems, which you well understand. But that is no excuse for us not taking our rightful position in solidarity with the struggles of the people of the Sudan towards peace and prosperity. It is in our interest to do so. When South Africa was admitted to the Organization of African Unity in July 1994 in Tunisia, Nelson Mandela, in his acceptance speech, made the following remarks. I'm just paraphrasing it. That South Africa will no longer be on the agenda of the OAU as a country that needs solidarity and support in its struggle for liberation against the inhumane apartheid colonial system. But one that will contribute to making, one that will be making a contribution towards solving the many challenges facing our continent. That's the commitment that Nelson Mandela made. And that commitment, I must say, was and continues to be carried out. Although with some weaknesses that we observe these days, that not more attention is being paid to ensure that that commitment is fulfilled. So as ourselves of that commitment, but also ask you to continue to remind us that it is our duty and in our interest to continue seized with the problems of this continent, and in particular the Sudan. That commitment stands today also in regard to the people of Sudan. Shukran. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much to Ambassador Nhlapo for his insightful speech there. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for honoring us with your presence and for sharing your wisdom. And it is true, we cannot and should not normalize the ongoing genocide in Sudan and in Palestine. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to hand over a mic to our moderator, Professor Amira, and his team of experienced panelists, to engage us. Prof, are you ready?
Yes. Thank you so much, Ponti. Thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Ambassador Nhlapo. Thank you so much for those words. And thanks for reminding us that we must not, the new normal, that we must not normalize cruelty. And as I say that, I have to remember Gaza and I have to remember Al-Fashir. So please keep those two places in your hearts. This is going to be a very fast-paced program, okay? And I'm very strict with time. So I'm looking at our amazing speakers here, but hopefully, also the ambassador has told us, please communicate something to the South African community so that they can support us. So thank you so much for that. But before I proceed with that, I have to thank Salaamedia. You have no idea what you've achieved, honestly. First of all, we feel seen, we feel heard, at a time when we really feel very neglected as Sudanese. And Salaamedia has managed today to bring together people into this room that they're all friends and family. That's something I have to acknowledge, but they have incredibly different views regarding what happens in the Sudan. But you have achieved that, Salaamedia. If I'm not mistaken, Salaamedia is celebrating its 10th birthday this year, so congratulations. And you know, I just love the humanitarian approach of the channel. Ponti Moletsani, your background is amazing. Thank you for hosting us in this very special venue. So thanks also to the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Thanks to Anissa, Nasreen, and Selelo for tolerating us, because the lead up to this event was not easy. So, as I said, this is going to be a very fast-paced program, and let me start off with an introduction, which I have called Reclaiming Our or My Identity, as Sudan is going through this attempted eradication of a people and a heritage. Very briefly in the lead-up, and this is a very personal story, but I'll be quick. So 7 years before the war, I wrote Sudan. Student protests show how much city planning and design matter. Remember, I look at everything from a city planning lens, an architectural lens, and a design lens. So it's just a reminder of what happened 7 years before the war. 4 years before the war, you will hopefully, even the non-Sudanese, remember the incredible youth revolution that happened, that inspired the world. And at the time, I wrote an article, all of these in the conversation, so they're publicly accessible. Sudan, the symbolic significance of the space protesters made their own. We will remember the sit-in that was very brutally dispersed. 9 months before the war, we went on our normal yearly holiday to the Sudan. We ate good food, we traveled, spent many beautiful hours with family and friends in the Sudan. 4 months before the war, I went for a wedding. And I would travel through Khartoum in what is alone at night. This is a terhal, the equivalent of an Uber. And I felt very safe, actually, a lot safer than I feel in Johannesburg at the time. But the Janjaweed had a presence, the RSF had a presence in the city. So something seemed a little bit uneasy, but I felt reasonably safe. And then 6 hours before the war, so we were gathered in Khartoum, 6 hours exactly. We had no idea what was to come. We met just before the war. It was a beautiful night under the stars. It was a night of love, melody, dreams. And every melody spoke about peace.
المحبة هي الحرية الوحيدة في هذا العالم، لأنها ترفع النفس إلى مقام سام لا تبلغه شرائع البشر وتقاليدهم، ولا تسوده نواميس الطبيعة وأحكامها. سلام على الذين لا تبدلهم حياة ولا تفرغهم الطرق ولا تغيرهم الظروف.
and we will return. Thank you so much for allowing me to share some of my reflections. So, our first cluster, Understanding Sudan, Context and Perceptions. Dr. Usman Nuruddin, welcome. Usman Nuruddin is a mathematical scientist and a Sudanese political activist. He combines his academic work in science with a strong commitment to social and political change. He is a December 2018 revolutionist and is a member of the Civil Democratic Revolutionary Forces. Anti-war, calling for peace, democracy, and a civilian-led government in Sudan. Welcome, Usman. You have 7 minutes, and once you hear the alarm go off, just please wrap up. Thank you so much. You're very welcome. Usman and I do not know each other very well, but we spent an amazing week in Durban together at the Decoloniality School, where we engaged in many conversations. You're very welcome.
Do I need this one? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Amira. And also thank you for Salaamedia and Nelson Mandela Foundations for hosting us this. I see a bit change of the program that we agree on it, but it's okay, we carry on with that. So let me just say again, thank you, and thank you, Ambassador, for that very powerful message that you said here, that Sudan solution is not the force solutions and must be a peace way of solution. Today I stand here as an academic, but also as someone who lived this devastating cost of the war since 2003, not just 2023. And this war is devastating the lives of the civilians, destroying the infrastructures and economic. And the main mandate of this war is to raise the gain of December revolutions. That revolution overthrew the dictatorship of the Islamic movement. So now, let me just briefly reflect on how the politics and the historical and social roots of this war. So this war did not come to nowhere. It has some roots that go back to the long history of failed government and militarization and systematic marginalization of the people. So this war has the main root that I think we must go through it before I start talking about how it started. The main root of this war is a colonial legacy that creates inequality inside the society. This is one of them. The second one, decades of the authoritarianism that militarized politics and corrupt institutions. The third one is a mismanagement of the diversity that turned the ethnicity to a weapons. Sudan is a very diverse country, but that mismanagement of the diversity turned to the weapons to be the ethnicity. Also the economic monopolization that create the wealth in the hand of few and left millions of the people on poverty. On top of that, the Islamic movement regime that came to the power violently in 1989 create militias, weak the armed forces and the security, civil service, came with the ideology of the Sharia law and Arabization, try to Arabize all the Sudanese.
Cells of that
Country in 2011. Yes, this conflict has different actors, especially the internals and the external actors. Also, there is the geopolitical and strategic positions of Sudan as well. That's also make one of the root cause. On top of that, we as the Sudanese civilians, we have been in this cycle of war because of those consequences. Now let me just go briefly reflect on how this war started and highlight some of the elements that make these wars, because there's a lot of misleading and misinformations that try to create these wars just like it started in April 2023. That's not correct. So in December 2018, we went to the millions as the Sudanese to the street and demand change of the Islamic movement regime. And we overthrow that government and form transitional government between the military institutions, both SAF and RSF collectively, and the Sudanese civilians democratic forces. Based on that agreement, called 2019 Constitution Declarations, and on that, the agreement was a military institution or military to lead the first 18 months of the Transitional Sovereignty Council, and the second 18 months to lead by the civilians. But towards the end of that ending of the military term, with the military intention to hold the power, with the network of the Islamic movement, that corrupted network, they commit a coup in October 2021. Since then, there is no legitimate authority in the country until today. But the civilians did not end it there. they start with a massive pressure that coming from the revolutionary forces, rejecting the coup, and with the attempt to end that coup, we sign political framework. I think I need some time to conclude. Eh? No, we need some time here because.
I'm sorry.
Yes, but let me finish because that's not the way we agreed on these things. But let me finish. So, in that political framework, we try to end the coup and also solve the issue that create within the military forces. And that political framework, the Islamic movement was against that political movement, political framework that signed in December 2022. So they tried to campaign against it until, with the assistance of some of their elements in the military forces, they broke this war between SAF and RSF in April 2023. That's the reality. Now, there are also some civilians immediately take an action and reject the war completely and saying there's no military solutions for this war. And those led by the revolutionary forces, led by the Prime Minister, Dr. Abdullah Hamdok. And we are calling for that ending of that war.
I
Yes.
think, Osman, that's a very powerful end.
Just a minute. I have to finish because, just a minute. And there are some civilians also took side between the two sides of this war, the warring parties. Some of the civilians, some of the elites took side with the military, SAF, which is armed force, and hoping that SAF must decisively defeat RSF. And others took side with RSF, hoping that RSF must decisively defeat SAF. But the very sad things about some of these elite positions have been picked based on regional belonging or ethnicity or corrupted network benefiting from the war itself. And that's the reality. Yes, just let me end with saying that, okay, let me end to saying that I want to also acknowledge the South African recent statement and the Quad is recent statement about ending the peace. And for me to saying to end the peace must be three things that require strong civilians anti-war bloc and complete rejections of the militarization and the war itself and the isolations of the war actors. And for that, we must carry on saying silence the gun in Sudan is not about choosing between the two warring parties or power sharing solutions or fragmentation of the country. But it is about ending the system where the violence is a language. It's about building the Sudans where the bullets replace the bullets. It's about where the diversity is the strength. And for the people of Sudan, that is what we demand as the civilians. And thank you. Program Director, there's some change. I'm not happy about it, but it's okay. We can carry on like that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Osman. Very powerful words, but I hope that the other speakers will not follow your example, okay? We have our hosts here. This program was given to me by the hosts, so we have to respect our hosts, okay? So thank you so much, Osman, for conveying your message very powerfully. Thank you. Saeed Abdullah, I don't know if he knows, sometimes we call him Saeed al-Sini, which is the Chinese Saeed. So Saeed Abdullah is a Sudanese-born foreign correspondent and Mandarin scholar, currently based in Johannesburg. with a strong focus on Chinese-African affairs. He has spent the past 9 years reporting on major developments across the continent. His work has taken him back to Sudan on multiple occasions, where he has closely followed and reported on the country's key political transitions and events. Welcome, Said.
Shukran. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning to my South African friends as well. I think it gets a bit tense here, but I genuinely feel that if we can talk to each other, we can achieve a lot. So I'll try to be very concise. I think 7 minutes is a bit long. My report is 2 minutes, 3 minutes in. So I used to be asking questions, not giving a speech. So 7 minutes is going to be too much for me. Thank you so much to Salaamedia. I really enjoyed the speech from His Excellency, the Ambassador Klabo, and hope that I pronounce it right. I want to start with the story that in 1997, I think 1996, 1997, I was a student at the primary school in Sudan, in Khartoum. And at that time, the school asked us to bring food to the people who fighting in the South Sudan, which is the army, the Umar al-Bashir, against the Sudanese Liberation Movement, John Garang at that time. So we have to bring them food. It was Ramadan time. And I think during that time, the country was suffering as well. So at the same time, the government was conscripting people to force them to go and fight, the young people at that time. So they took my uncle. He was 23, 24 years old. And I went back home because I need to bring him food. He's there. Otherwise, he's going to die from famine. I didn't find food at my place. We went to our neighbor. We get some food. I put it there. A few days later, he was killed. So why I'm saying this story? Because I want to say that the war in Sudan is not new. It's been there for a long time. It's been there since I was a child, and it's been there like before I came to this world. After that time, so in 2005, John Garang he came to Khartoum, they signed a peace agreement, and he came as a hero. But before that, we used to see him as a devil. Like for me, when I have a nightmare as a kid, I used to see John Garang. But now, when he came back to Khartoum, we used to see him as a hero. For me, this was the first lesson. In Sudan, truth changes depending on who in power. So here, I just want to say that to my South African friends, that Sudan used to be one of the largest countries in Africa, and rich in resources, fertile land, but our problem is a systematically broken country that since independence, we have 17 military coups, we have 3 uprisings, we have 3 major wars, which is the one in South Sudan, and like 2 million people died. The war in Darfur, about 300,000 people died. There are people that used to fight in Darfur still living in camps now in 2023, which is 20 or 24 years, I think more than 20 years later. And then we have this war. So what I'm trying to say here is each time history repeats itself. And I can tell you like this, what happened in these 3 wars, same leaders, same actors, same weapons. And they're using the humanitarian aid, they're using famine, they're using chemical weapons, they're using all of these tools to, and at the end of the day, the civilian are the one who pay the price. So the current war in Sudan between the RSF and the SAF, which is the Sudanese Armed Forces, both of the parties, unfortunately, are committing war crimes. And this is the fact-finding missions report from the UN last week is saying that both parties are committing crimes. Yes, the RSF have higher crimes than the SAF, but that doesn't mean like there is an innocent party here. Both of them, they are not innocent. At the root of all of this, the fact that the Sudanese state has never addressed its internal systematic problem. And now what we are seeing, hate speech, tribalism, lack of education, and the politics of exclusion continue to persist. I think it's time for us to address our issue, not to look at the symptoms. And after I came to South Africa, I saw the democracy here. Yes, South Africa have a very vibrant democracy, yes, with its flaws, but it was the first time for me to realize that the citizens can have a voice, and the citizen can hold their leaders accountable. And that the government, I think, and the government should exist for people, not to kill people. For me, Sudanese people also deserve that, and we need to build a future towards that. Us must be to stop the war, because if tomorrow looks like yesterday, then nothing will change. We're still going to have the same cycle. And I think for us as a Sudanese community here in South Africa, I would like to just convey one message, that when we go to funerals, we all go together, and we go and mourn the people who passed on, without looking at our political affiliation, and without look at where you come from. I'll go to funerals, I find people from belonging to RSF, to SAF, normal Sudanese people coming from the west, from the east, everywhere. We come there, we pay a tribute, we support each other. If we can do that, I think we can sit together, and I think we can solve our problems together. History keeps repeating itself in Sudan, but if we have the courage to face our internal problems and sit together, we can choose a different destiny. Otherwise, tomorrow will look like just like yesterday.
Thank you so much, Said. Thank you so much. So we're moving on to cluster number 2, humanitarian and civilian realities. Sarah Nagar, welcome. Raised in South Africa with strong Sudanese roots, holds a BCom law degree and an LLB, and is currently pursuing her Master of Laws LLM at the University of Pretoria. She serves as a candidate attorney and is deeply committed to the pursuit of justice, ethical legal practice, and social impact. Drawing on her diverse background, she approaches her work with a cross-cultural perspective and a dedication to continuous growth within the legal profession. She's also a very active, very young, but very active member of our community. And I've often said to her that maybe she could be the next president of Sudan. So welcome.
Thank you, Fanta. I really appreciate it. Assalamu alaikum, and good morning, everyone. It's truly a pleasure to be here today and to be given the opportunity to represent the struggle of the Sudanese youth. I stand before you today as someone who's shaped by two worlds. I was born and raised in South Africa, yet my roots are in Sudan. I carry the stories, the dreams, and the struggles of the people in my heart. Even though I didn't grow up there, their reality is personal to me. Growing up in South Africa showed me the power of freedom, justice, and accountability. It taught me that when young people are given the space to dream, they thrive. But looking at Sudan, that reminds me that when the foundations collapse, it's the youth who pay the heaviest price. The same youth who should be learning, growing, and building their futures are instead forced to survive. But the reality in Sudan is harsh, and it hits close to home. The dreams, the struggles, and the courage of its youth are under threat every day. When war erupted in 2023, it stole more than lives. It stole time. Years of education vanished as schools and universities shut down, and young people who should have been studying for exams and building careers were instead forced to abandon their dreams. For a generation that once believed change was within reach, the future suddenly became uncertain. Displacement followed, millions of youth were uprooted from their homes and communities, and in a single moment, the sense of belonging that grounds identity was torn away. A young person who once had friends, mentors, and plans for the future now finds themselves in a camp, a stranger in their own land. What is lost was not only education, it was dignity, stability, and the chance to imagine tomorrow. The greatest wound, though, is invisible. Sudanese youth carry the trauma of violence and loss. They have buried family members, witnessed destructions, and endured fear that lingers long after the gunfire stops. Yet even in this pain, they continue to show extraordinary resilience, creating networks of support, volunteering in their communities, and refusing to give up on hope. But resilience should not be demanded forever. These young people deserve more than survival. They deserve a chance to rebuild. I know this pain because I'm one of them. I may not have grown up in Sudan, but their stories are my stories, and their dreams are my dreams. And their fight for a future that feels stolen is a fight I carry in my heart every day. We must remember Sudan's youth once stood at the center of history. In 2019, they filled the streets with courage, demanding freedom and dignity, and they carried the hopes of an entire nation on their shoulders. And even now, amid devastation, they continue to remind us that hope is not weakness. Hope is strength, and hope is resistance. And this is where the African philosophy of Ubuntu becomes essential. Ubuntu tells me, I am because you are. So my humanity is bound up in yours. It reminds us that when Sudanese youth lose their education, the entire continent loses doctors, engineers, teachers, and leaders. That when their voices are silenced, we lose the creativity and innovation that could transform Africa's future. Peace, therefore, cannot mean the simple end to fighting. Peace must mean restoration. Peace must mean young people returning to classrooms, sitting for exams, and rebuilding their lives. Peace must mean families returning home, not as refugees, but as citizens. And peace must mean giving back the Sudanese youth the future that was once stolen from them. The scars of war will last for decades, but scars do not have to be the end of the story. They are also reminders of resistance, survival, and recovery. So if we stand with the Sudanese youth now, with courage, with compassion, and solidarity, then healing is possible, and their futures can be reclaimed. So I leave you with this. Do not let the Sudanese youth be forgotten. Do not let their dreams be buried underneath rubble, fear, and despair. Stand with them, lift them, protect their right to learn, to grow, to imagine, and to rebuild. Their courage has carried them through unimaginable hardships, but now it's our turn to carry them forward. Because when Sudan's youth rise, they don't rise alone. They lift families, communities, and an entire nation with them. And when they rise, we all rise. And our shared humanity, our collective future depends on it. So for the mothers who mourn, for the children who wait, and for a nation that still believes in tomorrow, the war does need to end. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah. You have 2 more minutes. You don't want to use them. Okay. Thank you so much. We have 2 more speakers in this cluster, and then there'll be an open conversation just for a few minutes, and then a break before we move on to our last 4 speakers. So Ibrahim Sheikh, welcome. Ibrahim is a renewable energy engineer. His long-standing commitment to social justice began at university, where he was a prominent left-wing member and was elected to the student union. His activism extended into a courageous stand against the former dictatorship, where he was a vocal advocate for democracy and social justice, resulting in multiple arrests by the former regime. Welcome, Ibrahim.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks Salaamedia and Amira and the speakers. Thanks, Ambassador, for nice speech and powerful words. Let me start with stating some facts. Yes, since the war started in Sudan, we have around 12 million refugees who flee the country. 7 Ethiopia, still Sudan form around 50% of the undisplaced in East Africa. Okay, let's, yes, these figures, everybody can Google it. It's not a thing that we must talk about here, but let's dive deeper into these figures. A report from UNHCR confirmed that around 80% of these displaced people are fleeing to an army-controlled zones. Another fact is that 88% of the civilian killing occur in RSF regions. It's not just numbers. We have to look at these numbers carefully. 80% of the fleeing people going to the army force controlled area. 88% of the civilian killed by the RSF. That's the first fact. Now, thank you. Now let's see why why it's happening like that. Is it a systematic type of thing, or why it is that it takes that form or that shape? I'll give you 2 stories from my close friends, family, and extended family. Let me take you through to my cousin, for example. My cousin lives in an area which is controlled by RSF in Khartoum, Omdurman, okay, at that time. It's approximately 5 to 6 kilometers from my house. He was forced to flee his house to mine, although both of them are warring zones. Still, he preferred to go there because he's fleeing a killing zone. He's not fleeing a war zone only. He's fleeing a killing zone, a civilian targeted zone, to a possibility of survival zones, which is the army control area. Another example of my extended father family, who lives in an island in the middle of Khartoum. The entire island was forced to flee their homes, to flee their places to Omdurman, where the army-controlled area is. And yeah, let's look at these facts, these stories, and in light of other stories from the other part of the country, like Darfur. Okay, in Darfur, a systematic genocide, ethnic genocide, happened to in Al Geneina, based on purely ethnic reasons, and that's also done by RSF. Yes, the army is not like an angels. Army controlled zone is not like a heaven for the Sudanese people, but yeah, it is a possibility of survival for the civilian. Okay, now why I'm saying that? Because I don't want us to fall into a trap of a false neutrality, because you can't be neutral to crime. What's happening in Gaza, for example, you can't say I'm neutral to what's happening in Gaza to Palestinian. Yes, you can try to silence the guns and everything. Yeah, but you can't be neutral. You have to condemn bad doings. You have to condemn the party who's doing these bad things, which is the RSF. And from now on, I'm not gonna say the RSF. The original name of the RSF is the Janjaweed, and that's the original name. So we have to keep this in mind. All those crimes that my comrade Osman was indicating, all these crimes done by the hand of Janjaweed. Done by the hand of Janjaweed in South Sudan war by the Miseria tribe forces, done by the Janjaweed in Darfur. All these dirty crimes was done by the Janjaweed. So we have to not to forget these things. And let's continue with how the Sudanese people reacted to this. Before we dive into that, let me just give you a background of what thanks Amira for sharing those pictures about the 2018 revolution and the revolutionists at that time, and the youth, what they were doing. Part of this revolution was the formation of the resistance committees. Resistance committees is the neighborhood committees that's formed to mobilize the people during the struggle with the regime. Those what's called the resistance committees formed at the beginning as political entities, continued as social justice and pro-democracy. One minute. Okay. Yeah. In this 1 minute, I'm just going to share a small thing. These people is part of the resistance committees. The resistance committees, after that, they form what's called the response rooms. Response rooms provide food, health care, and some of these pictures, let me show you. This guy here is a medical doctor. He's a friend of mine. And this picture is not like an internet downloaded picture. It's from my neighborhood, from Abkadok, okay? And this one is the common kitchen, formed by the resistance committee. And you can see that these people are wearing also some sort of army shirts. Why? Because they support the army. They do support the army. They fight with the army because they fight for their own people. These people, they are fighting for their own people, carrying guns and taking water to their people. Thank you.
You do need to wrap up and put it there. Thank you so much. And I see quite a few pictures there. Maybe you can share them with others during the break. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if possible, Amira, there is a 5-minute video, if you can just play.
Let's see. We'll consult with Ponti later. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Ibrahim. Rasha, marhab. So Rasha's bio is a little bit long, but I'll read it all. Rasha Abdullah Muhammad Sharif is a psychologist and researcher who worked as a social welfare officer, focusing, there's a little bit of, can we please, Ibrahim, sorry, you can't continue your talk now. Ma'alish, sorry. Yeah, you can definitely do it during the break. It's unfair on others, please. Rasha is a psychologist and researcher who worked as a social welfare officer focusing on women and child protection, combating gender-based violence, alleviating poverty, and creating income-generating activities. Rasha is also an active women's rights activist who has worked closely with Sudanese women's groups and grassroots networks, particularly supporting women affected by conflict in Darfur. She holds a master's degree in gender and development from Ahfad University and is currently completing her PhD in political studies. Her work reflects a lifelong commitment to advancing social justice, amplifying women's voices, and shaping policy solutions that empower vulnerable communities in Sudan. Marhab Rasha, you're welcome to come to the podium. And I have to add this, as someone that comes from Darfur and from Al Fashir, your pain is our pain, and welcome.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning. Assalamu alaikum and good morning. I wanted to take you to a place in North Darfur province, in the heart of a city of Al Fashir, where there is a neighborhood on the bank of the valley, where you can hear and see and hear the voice of the joyful young men who are playing soccer around the dusty street, where you can smell the aroma of the al-ful al-Sudani, the roasted peanut butter sold on the roadside, where you can hear the sound of mothers calling their children home, and where you can see the kids running around safely and freely, playing under the acacia trees in the valley. This place is called Aulad al-Rif. Aulad al-Rif neighborhood is the place where I was born and grew up. It is the place where I did have all my earliest memories. It is the place where it is full of life and joy, of family, of community. The street on this neighborhood is carried the rhythm of like the joyful of family, of community. It is a place for millions like me. It was home. Today, the reality is really changed. Things are really changed. Those sounds of joyful, the sounds of like the playful, the sounds of the music, and this smell of the aroma of the full Sudani are all changed and replaced with the smell of the burning houses. It changed with the fears. Those laughters are changed to the fears, and the cries of the people and the civilian in Al-Fashir. This is the reality today, and the reality is not just for Aulad al-Rif, not just for Al-Fashir, not just for southern community in Al-Fashir. It is the reality of most of or thousands of Sudanese community and cities. This happens in Khartoum, it happens in Al Jazeera, it happens in Sinja, it happens in Sinnar. The numbers are really great. We have like 150,000 of killings of people who have been killed with bullet. We are talking bullet only, not of like hunger, of traumas, of lack of disease and lack of medicines. It is really a huge number of killing by violence. 150,000 lives gone. 14 million people have been displaced internally and externally. About 15 million persons are in need for like medical care and service. We do have over 25 million facing crisis of hunger. Hunger really have been used as a weapon of war in Sudan. This is a reality that is there in my home country, Sudan, today. Unfortunately, this great number is being neglected and ignored by the international community and the cameras of the TVs of the world. Although there is many external hands, we can see and find their weapons in Sudan. We see their weapons, but we don't see their humanitarian aid. You can find the weapon of UAE, you can find the weapon from Egypt, from Turkey, from Algeria, from China. You can find all this in Sudan, not for the benefit of the Sudanese, but for their own interest and needs and for the resources like gold, oil, land, water, and whatsoever. So let me take the opportunity here and thank Salaamedia for giving us this platform to talk about what's happening in Sudan and to bring the voice of the silent people in Sudan. Although all this happens in all the cities of Sudan, but still I want to focus in what's happening in Al-Fashir because the most atrocities is happening in Al-Fashir today. So let me just give you some of the indicators and the things that is happening in Al-Fashir. First of all, let me give you some figures that Al-Fashir is under the siege for more than 550 days. The hunger is used as a weapon for war. People in Al-Fashir are now eating animals' food. They are eating the leaves of trees. They are eating the shell of the peanuts. This is the situation in Sudan, in Al-Fashir. The food conveys and the aid agencies have been blocked in Al-Fashir. The health system have been completely collapsed. The internet and the social media communication and telecommunication have been prohibited. The drones, the airstrike failing, not in the military target, but in the houses, in homes, in hospitals, in schools, in the markets, killing the civilians. So civilians in Al-Fashir are paying really the highest price of the war. It is really the complex and the greatest humanitarian crisis that's happened in the world, we can say. Yes, Sudan is bleeding, but not broken. People are surviving because of the work and the effort of the local people who are working in like the local and communal kitchens. They are really the backbone for survival in Al-Fashir and in Sudan, everywhere, especially.
Thank you so much, Rasha. Please do wrap up.
Okay, so to wrap up, after we heard, let us here call out the international community, the whole world, Africa, South Africa, for saving the human beings in Sudan, save the people of Sudan, not only by just calling for negotiation between the fighting parties, because this is happening for more than 2 years now, and unfortunately we see nothing that has happened. Now let us call for the mechanism that protects the civilians. We can do that working with the insiders, actors who are really working very hard to make the people live and survive. We can work with the women groups who are working really very hard in making food, distributing food, and with the youth who are putting themselves in a very risky and very critical, extreme violent situation and conditions, and they are never stopped. They are working for the people in Sudan.
Thank you.
Let
Thank
us-
you so much, Rasha. I think that
Thank
is
you.
a lovely and powerful. It's a powerful message to end with. Apologies to everyone that didn't finish their presentations. I have to be fair. With Ponte's permission, may we go to break now for 15 minutes? I think 10 minutes is a little bit short. So, okay, coffee's ready apparently, and then we have 4 speakers after the break. 15 minutes, please. Thank you. We have 4 speakers. We have 4 speakers. Assalamu alaikum. We are about to start. We have 4 speakers. We have 4 speakers in the final cluster. And the final cluster focus is on politics and the way forward, silencing the guns. Okay, so the first person we have is Dr. Abdel Karim Al-Ghoni. Al-Ghoni is a retired medical doctor. He was an advisor to the last democratically elected Prime Minister, Al-Sadiq Al-Mahdi. He spent 7 months in jail after al-Bashir military coup in 1989 against the democratic government. Since then, he is now involved in democracy, I guess in dialogue around how democracy can be restored in Sudan. I'm trying, is that fine? And up until the 2019 revolution deposed al-Bashir. He established Al-Ghoni Foundation since 2003 to assist rural people in Kordofan state. He also established Sidra Institute in South Africa to promote development and skills transfer. A well-known person to all of us. Welcome, Dr. Al-Ghoni.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم حقيقة أنا سعيد جدا ل3 حاجات. أول حاجة I'm very happy that Salaamedia have created this opportunity for us to talk to each other and to have other people listening to us. This is one. 2, I am actually very happy that they gave the youth and women an opportunity to speak their mind, because this is one of our main democracy problems. And for me, I see my future in Saeed, because he is the one who is going to be there with the knowledge of today and transferring it to the new generation. The third point I want to mention, I want you please to understand my context. I was brought up in a nomadic tribe, living with nature with no restrictions. My father, alayhi rahmatullah, when we were 10 years old, he asked us everything, so that everyone, when he takes a decision, he takes the consequences of that decision. And then I personally participated in 3 revolutions against dictatorial military regimes, personally. And the 4th one is that for the last 33 years, I have been breathing day and night democracy in South Africa. So I am 99.9% against dictatorial regimes. And I am more than 100% with civilian rule. I heard someone saying Gaza and Sudan. Actually, it's a parable. We need to understand this. You see, the war in Gaza, the whole world wanted this war to stop. Only one person doesn't want it to stop. Why? Because immediately when it stops, he will lose power. Netanyahu. The same thing in Sudan. We have a war in Sudan. Everything in the world wanted this war to stop. The African Union, the European Union, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, name it. Everyone wanted this war to stop. The only one who doesn't want it to stop is Al-Burhan and whoever is going behind him. Why? Because they know, like Netanyahu, if peace comes, they are no longer in power. And power for them is more important than the people. And this is why I put those two sentences that were sent by His Excellency the Minister. He said that it is very important that we have returned to civilian rule, and he spoke about silencing the gun. And I met him after the meeting, and I said to him, Mr. Ambassador, those two sentences, the war people don't like them. Al-Burhan doesn't like them, and supporters of Al-Burhan doesn't like them. So please don't utter them again in some of those meetings. I will focus only on the blue part of my presentation. I wanted to say that we, the Sudanese, are not Arabs and are not Africans. I, Abdul Karim Al-Goni, is an Arabized person. I took the best of the Arabs, and I took the best of the Africans, and I became Sudanese. And this is why Sudanese are trustworthy, honest, kind, courageous, wise, hardworking, humble, and generous. The Mahdist state is the one that have created our country. By the way, our country used to be in one of the battles fought by the Mahdist state is in Toshki, which is 50 kilometers north of Aswan. But now we don't have Toshki, part of Sudan. We also have Al-Ghallabat. It was a Sudanese territory, but now it is in Ethiopia. But the focus today is that Sudan is plagued by the colonialist army. Let me put it to you this way, and speak about the unspoken about. 5 years after independence, a military coup. Sudanese rebelled against it through 1964 revolution. 5 years again, a military coup. Sudanese rebelled against in 1985 April Revolution. Then in 1998, another military coup. Unfortunately, this last military coup was joined hands with the Muslim Brotherhood movement in Sudan, and it proved catastrophic. As through it, we lost all the Sudan we know. Sudanese rebelled against it in 1990, in 2019, and we are still fighting. The coup destroyed the longest railway in Africa, the largest agricultural scheme in Africa, Sudan Airways, Sudan Marine Lines, the public sector, the free education and social, you name it. Everything that we are proud of as Sudanese, the regime of 1989 have destroyed it. And now it initiated this war to kill the Sudanese spirit. We are friendly, we don't know our tribe, we are brothers. Now we are no longer brothers. Who are you with? Are you with Al-Burhan? Are you with Hemeti? Are you with the army? Are you with... You see? Creating problems for us. This is the last thing that they are doing now. But anyway, I wanted to say the 2018 revolution that deposed al-Bashir in 2019 is not random or baseless. It stems from decades of military oppression, broken promises, massacres, marginalization, and anti-democratic behavior. Many Sudanese see the Sudan army forces as part of the problem, not part of the solution. And I am one of them also. Because throughout our history, the military are the main reason why we are not progressing. Actually, I met one professor, he said to me, the Sudanese are genius. How were you able to destroy this major country, Sudan? When at independence, it was on the Newsweek cover that this will be the greatest country in Africa. How were you able to destroy it? I told you, don't ask me, ask the military. There is a point I want to mention. The militarization of politics since 1989 took a minimum of 75% of the national GDP of Sudan for military and security reasons, leaving nothing for development, leading to the collapse of all the national projects that I have mentioned earlier, because there is no money to spend on them. And this is our problem. If the military does not disappear from our politics, we are not going to be a country. Let me put it frankly. Then there is a report from OSHA, the United Nations, but I leave it to you. You know all this information. I wanted to give you an idea. Why did we have all the Sudanese going into the streets, and we have the revolution in Sudan that Amira said the whole world stood up for it? There are 7 reasons that I have found. One of them is the authoritarian rule of the military in Sudan. The armed forces is practically a political party. It ruled Sudan all its history. Ummah party was elected, but it has can only rule in alliance with other parties. But the military, no alliance. They have all the power. They could have made Sudan the best country in the world. They didn't. The second one is the brutality of the military rule against civilians. The third one is the ethnic and regional marginalization. You know it all. The third one is the civil war. Anywhere that I say about the army, please do it for the RSF, because the RSF is the army. They are not separable. Al-Burhan said the RSF is ours. My president, the Ummah Party president, was taken to jail because we said this RSF is not going to cause problems in Sudan. They took us and they said we are traitors to the Sudan. Today, the army wanted us to take the blame for what they have given birth to.
Dr. Elgoni, I think that might be a good point to end on.
Okay, I will.
No, your
end.
1 minute did end, but I'll give you another half minute.
Thank you.
you.
There is a huge desire for civilian democracy in Sudan. The slogans, there is a need to end the military rule, justice for crimes, and civilian-led democracy. Then there is this worsening humanitarian crisis that people have already spoken about. Those are the rules. So is there any possible breakthrough? Yes, there are possible breakthrough if every one of us take this as a personal responsibility. Anyone who supports the war supports killing people and increasing the disasters that are happening in Sudan. Anyone calling for the civilian rule, he is trying to take us back to be a better. And I see what has happened last week is actually what Sumud wants. What happened last week is what the Ummah Party wants, is what Ta'sis wants, and we hope that
thank you so much.
It will make something, and then I want you to take it a personal responsibility. Ask yourself every week, did I do anything this week to stop the war and reduce the suffering? Personally. Don't wait for the Hamdok or the army or for whoever. Every one of us has the responsibility to call, to keep praying and working for silencing the guns and calling for peace.
Thank you so much, so appreciated. And apologies again to all the speakers for having to cut them short. Thank you. Khalid Abdu Dahab, welcome. Khalid is currently the External Relations Secretary of the South Africa chapter of the Civil Democratic Alliance of the Revolutionary Forces, Sumud. which Dr. Algoni made reference to now. I thought maybe some of the South African audience wouldn't know what ta'sis and sumud are, so maybe Khalid will clarify. He is an independent strategic communication consultant, former spokesperson of the United Nations mission in Iraq, former head of media and spokesperson of the Pan-African Parliament, former academic and head of Department of Development Communication at the University of Juba, former spokesperson at the Organization of African Unity's Education Bureau, former trainer and civil servant. He has held positions at UNICEF, UNHCR, and the European Union offices in Sudan, educated in Sudan, the UK, Kenya, and the Netherlands. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amira. I will try as much as possible to stay within the confines of the extremely limited time that I was given. And I would like to appeal to Salam. Organize something to not have too many speakers, but to have 2 or 3 so that they can have enough time to convey a full picture or a fuller picture of the situation, because in 7 minutes you cannot. I will start by thanking Salaamedia for organizing this event, thanking the Nelson Mandela Foundation for hosting us. This is an opportunity to expose the conflict and the humanitarian catastrophe, which is actually bigger than the Gaza and the Ukraine combined. But the world is not paying attention to it, unfortunately. I would like to also thank the South African government and the South African people for putting the Sudan as one of their priorities. Particularly thank His Excellency President Ramaphosa for looking at the crisis in Sudan. I would like to thank him and to thank the Minister at DIRCO, His Excellency Lamola, for meeting with the leadership of my organization, Sumud, and for listening to them. And also thank DIRCO for the statement that came out on the issue of Sudan. Let me now go to the actual issues. South Africa is actually a very important country in Africa, and it holds positions. It is a member of the AU. It is a leading member of the AU, if not the biggest country in the AU. It is in BRICS. It is also in the G20. And we feel that South Africa can speak for us and convey our problems to all these platforms. Let me go very quickly on the efforts to stop the war since it broke out in April of 2023. There have been a number of platforms, starting with the Jeddah platform, organized by Saudi Arabia and the United States. There was Jeddah 1 and Jeddah 2. There was another meeting in Manama. There was another meeting in Geneva, actually more than one. There is another meeting in Egypt to bring the civilian forces together of the different opinions to come together and try and reach some kind of agreement. And then the latest one is the quartet, the United States, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, which issued a statement, as we all know, with a 6-point plan to try and end the conflict in Sudan. This statement that came out from the quartet was very clear. I think it was the clearest yet that is addressing the problem of the Sudan. They talked about the sovereignty and the unity of Sudan, because as you all know, now we have two governments in Sudan. We have a de facto government in Port Sudan, which is led by Al-Burhan. That government, which came to power as a result of a coup, therefore lacking legitimacy completely, and does not represent the will of the Sudanese people, does not represent the Sudanese people, full stop. Then we have another government that is in Niala, which is formed by an alliance between the Rapid Support Forces and some civilians who have chosen to go and ally themselves with the Rapid Support Forces. That government equally does not have any legitimacy. It is not recognized by anyone. The de facto government in Port Sudan has been suspended by the African Union because it came to power through a coup. So that tells you where both of these governments stand. Both of them are illegitimate. Both of them do not represent the Sudanese people. Both of them are leading us, unfortunately, to the breakdown of our country, something which we should be all against. Sudan has seen a breakdown before, when the South seceded. Do we want to go down that same path? No, we don't. No, we don't. I say it very loudly. No, we do not. We want to keep our country. We want the country to be united. And that is where Sumud comes in. And Sumud, for those who are non-Arabic speakers, is short. It's the acronym for the Civil Democratic Alliance of Political Forces, of revolutionary forces. And Sumud is an Arabic word which means resilience. So Sumud comes in. It is a civilian organization that has more than 21 political parties in it. It has almost all the professional organizations in it. It has all the trade unions, or most of the trade unions in it. It has also all the resistance committees. So that is Sumud. What does Sumud want? We have a vision that has been presented, and the vision is a three-step vision. First of all is to address the humanitarian crisis and to allow aid to go through to the civilians who are affected in the various areas. The second is stopping the war. The third is ending the war, and there is a difference. Stopping the war is a more technical issue. You know, ceasefire agreements, monitoring agreements, working out corridors for humanitarian aid to pass through, and so on. But ending the war is a comprehensive political process that should lead to the formation of a transitional civilian government, which should eventually lead to free and fair elections so that the Sudanese people can choose who rules them. That is the vision of Sumud. The propaganda that is being circulated by certain parties, that Sumud is the political arm of the Janjaweed, that is absolute nonsense. That is absolute nonsense. We are totally against the Janjaweed because they have created and they have committed crimes that have never been seen in our country. But that does not say that the army did not. The army also created and committed crimes against the civilian populations. Instead of fighting each other, why not go and fight each other? Why are the civilians being caught and killed and maimed and denied food and denied medical aid, the medical assistance, and denied living in peace? So we are against both of these two sides.
I think
We are
that's a
for
powerful-
the stopping of the war. We are for peace. That is what we are calling for.
That is a
And I will thank
powerful
you very
note
much
to
indeed.
end on. Thank you so much. Shukran. Shukran. We have two more speakers. Their bios are very short, but I'm sure that they have achieved a lot in their lives. So welcome, Mr. Ramadan Ahmed Brema. Ramadan is editor of SudanHorizon.com, an English-speaking online publication. He's a journalist, political analyst, and conference interpreter of English-Arabic, widely hosted by mainstream media and active on social media. We welcome you. Please take the podium.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I'm very honored to stand here to address you today. But first of all, let me express my thanks and appreciation to the organizers of this auspicious event, Salaamedia and the Nelson Mandela Foundation, who managed to bring us together here as Sudanese community to discuss something that is of great importance pertaining to our homeland. You brought us here to amplify Sudanese voices. Sorry. You brought us here to amplify Sudanese voices and create a reflective space for the Sudanese diaspora community and South African activists to stand in solidarity under the African Union's agenda, silencing the guns. What a noble quest. Talking about the current situation in Sudan, there are two facts that I have to state here at the beginning, before going to the way forward, as this is the title of this part of the speech. So what I would like to say is that there are two facts that I have to state. One is that the Sudanese question is too complicated for outsiders to understand. And sometimes some facts are mentioned, or some things which are mentioned are facts. It's impressions rather than facts. So people from outside may not understand. The second issue is that there is a significant misunderstanding of what is happening in Sudan due to flawed narrative. So the fact of the matter, as far as the current war is concerned, is that there was a political vacuum following the collapse of the former regime of General Umar al-Bashir. That vacuum was filled by the Rapid Support Forces, a paramilitary group that was used as a functional group to curb the rebel movements in Darfur at the beginning of this millennia, in the first decade of the millennia. Some foreign powers believed it was time for them to intervene and take control of the situation in Sudan. It started with a framework agreement as the first step. Our colleague before mentioned the agreement which was signed by the political forces and the military. But subsequently, there was differences between the two, and the Sudanese people were not involved. As a Sudanese citizen, I was not involved. So what happened? The military government, or the military, which was taken as an institution, because in the history of Sudan, involvement of military in politics was by individuals. But that was the first time the military institution was dragged into politics as an institution, not as individuals. So, agreement, this agreement, the framework agreement, as the first step, meaning that the step that led to this war, giving the RSF 10 years to integrate into the army. But given the pace at which the RSF was growing, it was growing at a very fast pace. It would not take more than 2 years to swallow the national army. The army discovered the plan and declined to sign the agreement. The second step, or plan B, was to overthrow the government in a military coup, arrest the army commanders, and announce a new de facto government. And this was clearly said at the beginning of the war, when the leaders of the RSF were calling on al-Burhan to surrender himself. He was called upon to surrender, and or otherwise, and they went in fact to kill him. About 35 of his guards were killed, and he escaped by miracle, if I can say. The third step, or plan C, is to engage in a quick war, defeat the army, and take control of the situation. Plan C also failed, and the war extended to the third year until today. Or elsewhere in Africa, it is very difficult to understand the extent of the war, the atrocities of the war. RSF, as a military group, or an armed group, could have done what was done before in the history of Sudan. From 1956, Sudan witnessed rebellion movements. But what happened in this rebellion, if I have to call it rebellion, calling it rebellion actually is a kind of praising it. It's a very soft way of calling it. It's not rebellion at all. It is not rebellion. The RSF never, in any way, bound by the rule of engagement that happened in the previous military, the rebellion movements. I myself, I come from an area where there was a rebellion, but rebellions always observed rules of engagement. They would move with their vehicles and attack army garrisons, but they never attack civilians. What happened in Sudan? What happened in Sudan is something unprecedented. And when I talk to South Africans think that it is a rebel movement, like any rebel in Africa. It is not. It is not something that even in Sudan, in the history of Sudan, is never happened. So it is very difficult to understand what happened in Sudan, because when I talk to you, you talk to what you have in your mind. But it is nothing near to what you think. When you talk about the atrocities of the RSF, and I agree with Mr. Khalid that he is not representing Sumud, or he is not a political alliance of the rebel movement or the RSF. Okay, I accept that. But let politicians separate themselves from RSF, because RSF is in no way. Politicians have the right to exercise their rights as citizens. Nobody can have the right to abdicate, to confiscate this right. Nobody has the right at all. So you as politicians exercise your politics, come to Port Sudan, come to Niala, come to Al-Fashir, whatsoever. There's no problem. But please disassociate yourself from RSF.
Thank you so much.
Can I have 1 minute? My mother...
A quarter of a minute?
Yes, you gave the 1 minute, give me 1 minute. My mother asked me, Ramadan, are these people Muslims? I said to her, Mommy, what is wrong? He said, no, they are not Muslims. I said, no, they are bearing Muslim names. She said, no, they killed someone in front of me and they chopped him just like how butchers do. Until this moment I'm talking to you, Deleng and Kadugli are besieged for 2 years, more than 2 years. My close relatives, I got a relative who lost 3 children because they ate the wrong food, the wrong herbs. People had to eat herbs. Lucky, Russia, as you mentioned, people in Al-Fashir eat animal food. They don't even have animal food.
Thank you
they eat
so
herbs.
much,
So,
Ramadan.
as a way forward, just a way forward, please.
I'm sorry, but I have to be fair to everyone.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think you've made your point. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, apologies to each and every one of you for cutting you off. I just want to be fair, okay? And some don't like the format. I actually think it's nice that we've heard all the voices. I mean, a few minutes is sufficient to show what the positions are, but we look forward to longer conversations sometime. Yeah, we look for, it's a start of a conversation, Khalid, it's not the end. So last but not least, yeah, it's okay, but yeah, thank you so much. Dr. Bashir Osman is an independent social activist and the former chairman of the Sudanese community in Gauteng. Full stop, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. What a pleasure actually to stand in the shadows of a great of our time actually. And let's be inspired by his steps towards freedom of our country from terror and killing. I'm tasked to talk about the South African experience and what lessons we can draw from it. As you all know that the South African experience in dialogue and preparation for democratic transition is one of the greatest human experiences. It has shown how through will and clarity of vision that one of the harshest human injustices has been smoothly ended in an oasis of freedom and sustainable democracy. Going to our history, it has been shown now and again that attempts at eradication other groupings or others in general has failed. Since the time of independence, Sudanese groupings tried to alienate others from being part of the mainstream policies of the Sudan. That has not excluded any group, including the Communist Party dissolution, the Mate Revolution as it was called, Al-Inqaz, and the short period after the 19th revolution of Sudan. Excluding others breeds for instability. And Mandela has time and again stressed that and paid attention to it. And he was saying always, whenever he was asked about what would be the position of the white minority in the new dispensation, and he would answer by saying that they are African, South African citizens. Clarity of vision in the case of South Africa to achieve the goal of equality was based on one man, one vote. That has been always guiding all the processes to achieve that goal. And therefore, they were not really distracted by any distractors, including the murder of Chris Hani, who was one of the engineers of the transition that we live under it now. That could have actually spelled disaster of the process of the negotiation. But it was actually considered and it was understood as a distractor in itself that was meant to sway people from the path towards change and dismantling the apartheid system. And the enemies of democracy or peaceful transitions would always find ways of doing that. For us now, our problem is the country that is meant to be collapsing. And I think our main focus should be on how to keep that country from collapsing. That should be our strategic goal. We should not be really distracted by who had done what, because I think all of us have contributed somewhat to the problem that we are facing now. The lesson of going into the transition, focusing on the final goal, also should alert us not to jump steps. The South African experience was so smoothly driven that it addresses the main topic at hand, which was ending the apartheid system. Not really sharing power or fighting against other or alienating one from the previous. Even the previous regime, the white minority party or regime, was elemental in the realization of the change. And they were made to understand that they will be part of the transition and they will see how that is beneficial to them and to their people. The Codessa was actually an example that us as Sudanese should look for, that we need to look at what really the issues, not the parties, not the tribe, not the individual. What are the issues that really we need to look for? And because of time, I think I'm not going to be able to cover everything. The transitional period was designed to be a short pre-transitional period of 6 months that lay the foundation for elections, and then an elective assembly that is going to write the constitution and to form the committee for truth and reconciliation. I cannot stress more. These two major things that we as Sudanese, we start putting them up front, were discussed and were executed in 1996, 2 years after the election of Mandela. That tells how can you actually play or plan your transition, not really putting sometimes the car before the horse. I think I need to just go quickly through other points, but we all talk about ending the war, and that, I'm sure, is the dream of every one of us, regardless of what position are we in now, because that's a normal thing. That is the noble thing. That the thing that will end the suffering of our Sudanese people. But we have to be practical. How do we do that? How do extract lessons from the South African experience? In order for us to do that, we need to identify this war correctly as a war against the people of Sudan against Sudan as a state, against the people of Sudan, their heritage, their culture, their existence, and their every institution. So they want us to start from nothing. Number two, we have to identify Al-Janjaweed as a terrorist organization, equal to the apartheid system in South Africa. Because, and that's fortunately now, is under process in the US as guided by the Congress. So by end of October, we should actually hear from them. And for us as civil organizations, we need to send a clear, ethical, unambiguous message to our South African friends and to the media at large about and to reflect correctly on the atrocities that are being perpetrated and are now perpetrated against Sudanese people. And Al-Fashir actually is one of the examples. Not to downplay the role of the UAE in fueling the war in Sudan and a continuation of the suffering of people.
Can you please wrap up?
I'm finishing now. These steps may bring the Janjaweed to the negotiation table in good faith, because it doesn't matter actually if you come with just your perceptions to negotiate. You have to come in good faith to be part of the Sudanese collective and to be part of the transition towards democracy. And the failure to attribute...
One more point.
Last thing. I become like Osman now. The failure to attribute responsibility when the evidence is clear creates a de facto impunity for the perpetrators. That is called false neutrality. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thanks to all of our speakers. We have had an incredibly diverse overview of opinions and political positions in Sudan, interpretations of what's happening in the Sudan. And I'm sure we've left our South African friends more confused. I'm sure. But we still appreciate that you're giving us time to express ourselves and to discuss these differences. And it really is a unique effort by Salaamedia to put us all in the same room. So we have a 30-minute open floor. And I would like to, I must admit, when I walked into the Nelson Mandela Foundation for the first time today, I was very moved. I did a quick scan of the exhibition, and we are all deeply, deeply affected by South Africa's history and its political history. I always tell the story of my activism during my university as I was very young. And we would chant as part of the women's movement, Winnie Mandela Ramzi Nidalna. We were very young. Winnie Mandela is the symbol of our revolution. And I also, at a very young age, was carrying around Free Nelson Mandela petitions. So being here today is incredible. So to facilitate our 30-minute open floor dialogue is Lutfia. Lutfia Suleiman is a senior researcher at the Nelson Mandela Foundation. She has a background in climate policy, currently working on land program and researching regional issues in Africa with a political economy lens. She previously worked in a development space on climate and economic justice. Thank you so much, Lutfia. Welcome.
Can I ask a question? Just a quick question.
Sure.
As speakers, do we get the opportunity to respond to some of the issues that were raised?
I'm going to give the mic to Lutfia to answer that very complex question.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to everybody present. Thank you so much for joining us. I won't say too much because I've just been asked to step in and facilitate what I understand is potentially a very difficult conversation because we are now moving from the realm of a one-sided presentation to conversation and inviting questions and reply as well. I'm going to ask that questions are kept short and clear. And I think I will take the liberty, Ponti, of suggesting that we do offer the space for the 4 speakers to reply. Again, I am going to keep it very, very tight. So perhaps if we can have short questions, we will take maybe a round of 3 or 4 or points as well. Yes. Oh, sorry, 7 speakers. Yeah, so the 3 before as well, yes. Yeah, so perhaps a round of about 4 or 5 questions. And then if your question is directed towards a particular speaker as well and you would like to hear from them, please just also mention that, at the beginning of your question as well. Do we have a roving mic? Okay, all right. Okay, so I do invite questions or comments from the audience. Perhaps starting, okay, I think I saw a hand go up there at the back first. And then along the line, and then Carnita at the back. You want to start at the beginning? Okay, sure. All right, okay.
Okay, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name is Ali Ahmed Al-Nagar, a Sudanese born doctor, being in South Africa here for many years, and I'm a South African citizen by now. But I'm going to speak here as a concerned Sudanese citizen. I'm very saddened by the fact that there are some people who came here to use this podium, which was mainly meant for raising the humanitarian crisis, to score political points. So those who have done that have actually missed the point altogether. The other thing I'm profoundly, it's profoundly tragic and sad to have people who advocate for the continuation of the war now, while at the same time actually raising concern about the atrocities committed by the RSF forces. We know about the brutal nature of those forces, no doubt about that. We know about the heinous crimes that are actually committed by these forces. That is not the point of our discussion today. But at the same time, to actually try to raise this point of atrocities while you are supporting the war, this is actually a moral conflict, in my opinion. So today, there are 2 camps. There is one that advocates for the war to end with all the suffering that it brings with, and there is another camp that actually insists on the war to continue, irrespective of what the cost that it costs to the people. So reflect on what you are doing, on what you are saying, and remember, when the dust of this war settles down, where do you want history to remember you? Are you with peace or with war? It's not about being with the SAF or with RSF. It's whether you are with the peace or with the war, and that is a critical point. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Go back over there, the gentleman with the hat.
Do I need to stand up? All right, thank you so much to Salaamedia for the opportunity. In order to keep myself, on point, I've written down my intervention, and it's more of a point, not a question. I want us, my name is May, as Khaltu said, my name is May. We must not forget, that the 2 warring parties were once one. They joined hands to stage a coup against the transitional government. Remembering this is not about amnesia. It's about accountability. Today, there is a de facto administration that operates from Port Sudan, but its existence should not be mistaken for legitimacy. Power seized through force cannot and will not replace the genuine demands of the Sudanese people. Our compass should remain fixed on peace, civilian rule, and democratic legitimacy. The Quad's recently proposed roadmap to ending the war is a clear statement that there is an international appetite for a reset. Yet, such plans can only succeed if rooted in a genuine desire for peace and accountability. The same institutions that staged the coup and started this war cannot be trusted to shepherd a return to civilian rule. For Sudan to move forward, the narrative must shift from the dominance of armed actors to leadership of citizens demanding peace, democracy, and dignity. The warring parties, particularly the de facto government of South Sudan, must set aside their pride and come down from their iron throne to take a seat at the negotiation table. And Africa also has a responsibility. Silencing the gun is an African promise, not a slogan. South-South solidarity, diaspora leadership, and principled diplomacy must converge one demand: stop the war now, end the suffering, and save the people of Sudan. And in closing of my point, this war has affected all of us, one way or another. On a personal note, I myself have lost family members, friends. Yeah, I promised myself that I will not get.
Take your time.
Yeah. And people within my own family were subjected to torture and forced disappearance by both fractions of the war. One of the speakers spoke about condemning the violations by the RSF. He deliberately failed to mention the atrocities committed by SAF, the killing and torture of those thought to be complicit with the RSF. If we're going to condemn, I condemn both. We are not here to score political points and point fingers. And I'm honestly fed up with losing people in this senseless war. Calling for this war to end is not a position of negative neutrality. It's the most powerful position to take, to rise above hate and prioritize peace and united Sudan above all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. My name is Mukhlid Yusuf. I have just two very small points that I would like to, the first one, to address it to our South African friends. We have seen how the government of South Africa under the ANC leadership has brought Israel to the ICJ, and how it managed to make the Palestinian crisis, although it's been for many years and it's been already gotten to the global attention, but South Africa had a very main role to do that. And with that, now ICT has already charged Netanyahu as a criminal in the dark court. So the question that I have to the South African, maybe government or maybe NGOs or activists, how we, and thank you very much, with this kind of events, it's actually helped the Sudanese crisis. But the question will be then, why we could not make a lobbying that South Africa managed to do to address the same situation in Sudan. First of all these efforts that have been seen politically has been happening with Sudan didn't come from Africa. Most of them come from other players. So the question is, what is the possibility that we as a Sudanese community in South Africa help Salaamedia and other organizations to make ourselves heard globally? And the other thing I wanted to say, to thank you, Salaamedia, this is the first time to attend an event with concept note. We've never had this opportunity before. We always convene all these events, but nothing is written. And I agree with Ali that many speakers miss the point because probably they did not read the concept note, or they did not know that it's actually objective of this event. And the objective number one is to raise awareness. So these are 2 points I would like to make, and I would like, in my opinion, is we had crisis since 1956. And the problem that we always end the crisis, but we weren't ready for the next steps. And that's another question. Again, today you could see, probably South African friends, you could see how fragmented have we become as a society. And if we end the war today, tomorrow or next, we will start a new one, because we've never addressed the reasons of those wars. And the main reasons of the worst war from the beginning was the failure of our elites and the inequality that has been always the main problems. We have a problem of social disease, not necessarily only political disease. Can we have these kind of events more in the future? And can we, as we see ourselves, intellectuals or activists, try to work together to address these social diseases So this would be the last war in Sudan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we can take two more inputs. I see a gentleman over there with a white cap and then a South African counterpart. We will come. We'll come that side. We'll come that side. If you can just maybe stand so we can and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Yasser. I'm been in South Africa for 24 years. And really, if we speak about, first of all, I really acknowledge Salaamedia for gathering us as Sudanese for the first time in our history in South Africa. Okay. We used to talk and speak about Sudanese problem separately in our houses, in our gathering, but not something like that. This is the first issue. The second issue, I'm a very good listener. I'm listening to each one. And the conclusion, all of us as Sudanese, we love Sudan, but in different way. And that is a healthy thing, by the way. As long as we have common ground, that is very important for solving any problem. This is one issue. The second issue, the Sudan, since 1956, it was in war with itself and evolving until today. Because for one reason, we focused on state building rather than nation building. And also this issue, it has to be really think about it. The third issue, as Sudanese, we have to engage to every Sudanese here. And this is one of the issues of Sudanese are not engaging. We're just talking, excluding. And also my question, I can really raise it to Sumud. First of all, we are Sudanese. We are not going to fight. We can listen to you. We can enrich the discussion. But you can't just stay and discuss and excluding us. Yes, you have a project. We respect your project. We need to listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think if we can take a final question from the back over there. And then, no, we are coming that side. You see, I'm even moving this side here. So I think what we will do is get a final question over there. There were two questions that I heard. Some were comments. There were two questions. One was around what can the activist and Sudanese community in South Africa actually come together to do? And the second question was directed at Sumud. So we'll take those when Kwanita is finished, and then we'll move to the side.
Shukran. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Conita Hunter. I'm a journalist based in Johannesburg. I've been listening to this engagement today with keen interest. So there's three things that I want to just run through very quickly. The first is, firstly, to congratulate each of you for being in this room despite your enormous differences. But one thing is clear, that you are committed to your country, and that's enough to bring you into this room, and that's all what it's needed to overcome what has been years and years and years of the stalemate in Sudan. So I wanted to just comment on three things, and I have a question to answer. Over the weekend, I had spent time in the Northwest with the current president, which is an ANC president. And next to him was a minister of cooperative governance from the IFP. And in South Africa, the ANC and the IFP were at war with each other, fueled by the apartheid government. They had one enemy, which was the apartheid government. But what the apartheid government then did was make black South Africans fight amongst themselves as a way to distract from the goal. 30 years later, it is unthinkable in a world where the AFP and IFP literally would slaughter each other. There are stories in Togoza Township where people would be burnt, necklaced with tires, right? And today you have a president and a minister from two warring factions now leading a country. This is not a small thing. And it came about, one, through very, very uncomfortable conversations, but number two, through coming together and hearing each other out. So the sentiment from some of the speakers about needing to be heard completely and having a chance to respond is the symptom of why we are in this problem, because we all want to speak and nobody wants to listen. And so the reality of it is that everyone's view to a conflict is driven by their own lived experiences. And for sure, there will be differences. There will be differences. But we are nowhere near closer to what it is that we have to do. It becomes an echo chamber to say, we are currently in a war. This conversation is not for your generation, not for my generation. It's for this generation of kids, right? And so if we continue talking to each other, and South Africa had the same problem when it went through the TRC, when it went through the CODESA negotiations, where there had to be a point to say we had to sit across people who wiped out entire communities at the TRC, where our comrades had to listen to the apartheid government getting away with certain things. And 30 years later, it's flawed in so many ways. But the most important thing is that you overcame the first hurdle, is to understand that the country is worth fighting for. And so my advice is, and I really wanted to ask a question, but I was just quite taken aback at this emphasis on the differences rather than what brings us here together. You guys have more in common than you think, right? So if you want to call it the Mandela Foundation, use this conversation as what ignites the future of Sudan. You want to call it the Salaamedia Declaration, you want to call it the Houghton Peace Accords, whatever you want to call it. But essentially, today it's a historic moment and we don't even realize it. So this emphasis about I need to make my point and I was not given 2 more minutes to make my point and actually I want to respond. Everybody has said what needs to be said. Now, what is the roadmap in your environment to move forward? As journalists, we sit through so many of these conversations that become talks about talks. And honestly, the conversation has to be about what is going to be left for these kids. And so I would really, really ask to say, what is going to be the map forward? Salaamedia lit the flame. Who is going to take that baton forward, and what is that going to look like? And secondly, at some point, what if we stop talking and listening? And what will be the forums for that to lead to meaningful change in your respective areas? To understand that political differences is human, but more importantly, it's about now, what is it that, how can we leave those differences aside so that you can have a situation where 5, 10, 15 years later, you can sit together in the reconstruction of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kanita. Just with a view to time, I think perhaps let's move into the final few questions from the side and then we'll wrap up with the responses. Yeah, sure. Okay, we'll start at the back and we'll come forward.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My name is Asim Hussein. I would like to ask Saeed directly. Saeed, he mentioned you see the chemical weapon there in Sudan. Please, just I would like to ask the approve. Secondly, we asked the sister, she mentioned the people in the sanction and we eat the animal food. Please, we'd like to ask how you can help them and who put them in the section. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
one gentleman behind you and then two.
Okay. It's actually a comment. I will start with a small story.
Small story, please.
Yes, yeah, it will be small. And it's actually an answer for what should be done next. So when I am a witness for the war. I was there when it happened. I was in Khartoum. My place was Shampati. People know the place. So when the war started, it's actually I'm a lecturer at the University of Khartoum there, and we have a residence there for the university. So when the war started, the RSF actually started occupying the houses that next to us. So the decision for me was I took my family and I flee to Al Ubaid. When I went there for Al Ubaid, because my family, the big family is that side, we stood there and I spent like almost a year in that place. So what I want to say is that for us as a civilian, at that time, we were inside the Lubaid. The picture and the vision for us was so clear. We were being bombed from the RSF. We are civilian inside the Ubaid. We were being bombed from outside, and the bombs was like everywhere. Me myself, the bomb, when it happened, I was 3 houses from it. So it bombed on one of the houses, like 3 houses only from me. So for me, and it could be the answer for what should be done next. Like people in Al Ubaid, what do you think they are fighting for? Do we need war? Like I'm a civilian. Do I need a war? No, I don't want it. But RSF is outside the city bombing me inside the city. The same situation, you can say it about the Dalan. You can say it about Al-Fashir. We always been in a defense situation. What I should do as a civilian? That is my question. And I think the answer to go forward is to ask the RSF, because they are always in the attacking position. Stop this thing and let's sit down and talk. Otherwise, what I should do?
Thank you. Yeah, the gentleman over here and then somebody over here.
Assalamu alaikum. First, our deepest gratitude for Salaamedia and Nelson Mandela Foundation, and for all our friends, South Africans who are here now. I was planning to do something, but I just received a message now that 51 young Sudanese guys died in a shipwreck trying to go to Greece. Why are they going there? Our sincere condolences to the families, to my families, to every single Sudanese here lost somebody, to every single Sudanese, wherever it is, he lost somebody. Why do we ask to stop this war? Because of this loss of human being, because of loss of other lot of things. Let me tell you. In the schools, they used to announce the result of matric in the radio. So sometimes maybe they say, مدرسة الويدة الثانوية لم ينجح أحد. There is a deep sadness most. Why is there a deep sadness? Because all that generation of that matric, 6 anhur, how you call it, Osman? We got in Al-Ubaida Saniya 6 anhur. Imagine each class got around 50 students. All these people, we come to conclusion of 300, 400 students, they fail. It is lost for the generation that is coming that time. Now, today in 2025, last week there was a study, or let's say it is a study, indicated that in Sudan universities, after the matric result recently, whereby this matric result, by the way, only few people did stand for that exam, because half of the Sudanese students, they never get a chance to write exam. That's why we say this war must stop. Okay, let's see those people who pass. We got in Sudan almost, where the professors here, they know how many, I'm not sure of that, but we got a lot of universities. So if we say that there's 60,000 students they did pass this year, just less than 1,000 of them, they did apply for chances in Sudanese universities. Some universities, Durman University, Agriculture College, they designed to take 8 students in each of the 3 departments, whereby one student did apply. Khartoum University, Sudan Ghana, Sudan University, let's say جامعة أفريقيا العالمية, African University, International University. All these universities, nobody did apply. Now we're talking about a whole generation that is losing out in education. Why? Because of this war. That's why we say this war must stop. It's not that it is luxury for us, the war must stop, no. It is necessity in order for this country to stay as a country. It's just part of it, that education side. I'm not talking about no other side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Okay, in the front. Gentleman over here.
Respected attendance, Assalamu alaikum. In this moment, I would like to call people of South Africans, respected people of South Africans, to stand with idea of one respected speakers, said Netanyahu and Burhan, both of them looking for power. We know the first fighting non-Israelis. Those are Palestinians. The second fighting RSF. I wish mathematics scientists solve this problem by mathematics logic topic. If RSF are Sudanese or non-Sudanese. If they are Sudanese, so the comparison is not right. The first actually fighting non-Israelis, non-citizens of him. If RSF are non-Sudanese, so Burhan should fight them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think let's take one last question. We didn't give the middle a chance over here, so perhaps the gentleman who had his hand up first, and then I'm going to ask the 7 speakers
السلام
to
عليكم
respond.
ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. شكرا للسلام. Peace. أنا حقول بعض كلمات. I will talk quickly. No rational person refuse peace. But how to do it? This morning, an electricity station in near Kosti was bombed by drones. They damaged every infrastructure in Sudan. The war is not against military. It's against the civilian. Raping, killing, stealing, robbing, everything. To me, the main cause of this conflict is Hamdok and his alliance. Volker. To me. And we are fed up with Islamic, with a broken whistle about Islamic movement. This is a broken whistle. Now we are suffering. People are suffering now. Nothing, they've broken everything. So to me, I think the question for Dr. Khalid, he's talked about the men, the civilian. Who are your men in the Sudan? Tell me about them. How many? How many? The box of voting can determine this. So how many have you? They have nothing in Sudan, and they will not go there now. They will not go there now. If I can go to Sudan now, but if they go there, the people will kill them.
Thank you
People
so
will
much.
kill them. Yes,
Thank
like
you.
me. I will kill you and the others.
Okay. Thank you so much for the comments, the questions. We are going to wrap up now. Again, interest of time, I think we definitely underestimated the amount of time needed for conversation. If I can ask each of the 7 speakers just to have a minute to wrap up and respond to any questions that were directed at you. I think the main question that I'm hearing, apart from the comments, and thank you so much for all the stories that were shared, is really how can the Sudanese community in South Africa play a part in taking a conversation forward today. I just want to check, are we going to start on the side with our speakers? 1 minute.
I think the question was directed to me from Asim about the chemical weapon. And can you hear me?
No. Just switch it on.
Just speak. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Sure. I will answer the question that was asked to me about the chemical weapons. First of all, I brought the chemical weapons in the whole concept about this, it's being used in the Sudanese conflict. But since you asked me, I'm a journalist. My mission is to find fact. I don't just come here and just bring nonsense talk. I'll bring you, like, first of all, the Amnesty International in 2016 said that the Sudanese government used chemical weapons in Darfur, especially. But
Sorry. Can we allow the speakers their turn now? May we allow the speakers their turn? Thank you.
The Amnesty said that in the time between January and September 2016, they're using chemical weapons. And I can send you I can show you that link. In January this year, 2025, on the 16th of January, Declan Walsh and Julian are both New York Times journalists. And I think New York Times, everyone here knows New York Times. That they said the Sudan's military has used chemical weapons twice, not once. And this is...
Okay, can I ask that we allow to wrap up?
My issue, I'm not here to say they are right or wrong. I'm here to say what is written by this international community, by this international organization, but by also what the fact have been checked on the ground.
Thank you, Saeed. Pass it to the next gentleman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again. I think it's a good engagement and tough ones. And there are not many questions for me, I think, but there's one question that our South Africans journalists raised there, the way forward of this. And I think during my talk, I said clearly, we first need to identify the anti-war civilians bloc if we were seeking for solidarity. Without this one, you can't find solidarity. And the issue of Palestine and Sudan, there are two different contexts. There's the invasion. In Sudan, there's an internal crisis, internal problem, but fueled by external. So we must first identify these two different things. So we form anti-war civilians, rejection of complete of war. This is not about in between, I'm here, I'm against the war, looking for peace, but my heart with army. Or my heart was because of, no. If you are rejecting the war, you have to completely reject all the people who are involved in the war. Third, isolation of those who are being war actors. We need to agree on that. Then we seek for the solidarity for our South Africans or outsiders to support us to end the war, because our missions to end the war, we are not looking for who committed crime, how much they committed, because the war itself is a bigger crime. The war itself is a bigger crime, and thank you.
Thank you.
I have 2 points here to make. First of all, nobody is supportive of the war. Absolutely. I don't think anybody here supports war. The question is, how can we stop the war? We stop the war if we can urge the RSF to stop attacking villages and lift siege of cities. Until this moment, the people in Deleng, Kadugli, Al-Fashir, they are suffering. The villages, at the moment I'm talking to you now, Al-Ubaid itself, the population has doubled because all the villages have now moved to Al-Ubaid because of being attacked. How can we talk about peace and these things happen? Please use your relationship. If you have any kind of relationship, I think you don't have a relationship, but anyway, please, if you have any communication with the RSF, please tell them to stop it and come to the negotiating table. No problem, we make peace. That's number one. Number two.
30 seconds, please.
Number two, sorry, no interruption. Number two, whatever happens in Sudan, it is because of the failure of the political elite. Absolutely, political elite failed from the right to the left. It is absolute failure. Please, let us as Sudanese talk to each other because we have a shared ground. Sudan is enough ground for us to talk because all the things that happened there, everybody paid the price. So if all of us paid the price, it means that we have something that's shared in common. All of us were lost. Then let's sit and talk like how South Africans did. They sat and talked and they assimilated and accepted each other. Why can't we sit and talk and accept each other and move on?
Thank you so much.
Let us have our differences. Let us agree on agree to not to agree, meaning that we lay the criteria of our disagreement.
Thank you so much. If you can wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, actually. I'm really very happy about the discussion. When I wake up every day in the morning, I ask myself, knowing that the war does not give roses, what can I do today to stop the war? And whenever I go into the groups, I try to promote peace, to correct misinformation, and speak to some of my brothers who are dreaming, who two people are fighting, they wanted only one to stop the fighting. The fighting is between two people. If the two people don't sit like Nimeri and Joseph Lago sat on the table, like Burhan sat with others on the table, like Al-Bashir sat with others on the table, there is no, this is what is the tango? It's two people. Don't dream. One person, if you see speaking only over Bashir to stop the war, over Burhan to stop the war will not solve the problem. Speaking only of RSF will not solve the problem. So let us do something. Take it a personal responsibility. What can I do tomorrow? What can I do next week to promote peace and prevent war? But anyone who is promoting war, he is part of the suffering that any Sudanese suffers. He is part of any death that happens in Sudan. He is part of any student who loses education. He is part of anyone who dies because we could not give them kidney transplant accessories. All those people who are promoting war are promoting suffering and promoting death. Please stop it and let us promote only stopping the war. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Elgoni.
Thank you very much. I would like to start by something that my brother Ibrahim here did. He came with a picture of somebody holding a gun. Somebody holding a gun. We are talking about peace here. And he's showing us somebody who's holding a gun. How can we talk about, please let me finish, like I listened to you. Can you please let me finish? You threatened me with death.
Sorry. Can I remind the audience that this is a dialogue platform?
Please let me finish.
To please quieten down and allow Dr.
Yes,
Khalid to speak.
Thank you. So Ibrahim came with somebody holding a gun. We are talking about peace, and he's showing us a gun. My friend Brema here said something about politicians must dissociate themselves from the RSF. Let me talk to you as a Sumud representative. We are totally disassociating with ourselves from the RSF, because Taqaddum, which was the precursor to Sumud, when some of the members decided to go and ally themselves with the RSF, we said no. We said no. So that is one thing. I cannot speak of everyone. I only speak for my organization. Dr. Bashir said that the Janjaweed are a terrorist organization. I do not disagree with you. I totally agree with you. Okay? Okay? But who started all the problems in Sudan? The Muslim Brotherhood. And we are, please let me finish. And I am saying that Sumud is advocate. Please let me finish.
Sorry.
I'm not going to
Dr.
answer
Khalid,
somebody
can you please
who's
just give us a
shouting.
second? Sorry,
So-
crowd, and those in attendance. Can I please remind you, and I respectfully,
I am going to say,
just
the
to
Muslim
allow
Brotherhood
Khalid to finish.
is also, we are calling now for the Muslim Brotherhood to be declared a terrorist organization. And we are, and I think the international community is beginning to realize very clearly, Ma'alesh, that is your problem. So that is
Khalid, if you can also
something that
wrap
we
up
have
a bit.
to do. No, I have a couple of points that I must say them.
Okay, sorry. We gave everybody just a minute to speak. If I can ask that we move to the
I
next
want to
speaker.
answer the journalist who spoke earlier on about
30 seconds, please.
What do we want to do to the way forward? Sumud has actually come up with a vision, and I outlined it earlier on. It's a 3-step vision that is supposed to lead to the end of the war. Somebody talked about attacks from the Janjaweed. Okay, it's happening. But the other side is also attacking. Let me tell you, I lost 2 cousins to the Janjaweed. 2 of my cousins, 2 brothers. One was killed outright. The other has been missing since the war started. We don't know anything about him. But at the same time, my neighbor, my next door neighbor, was bombed by the army, and the lady of the house died.
Okay, if
That
I can
led
ask you
my
to
sister
please wrap
fleeing.
up
So
within
both
a few
sides
seconds.
are committing crimes there.
Sorry, and also just
Okay.
to say, I think I'm hearing a lot of personal story. I think also, unfortunately,
just
this
want
is
to give
not
him
the platform
examples.
actually to
I
take
just want
care
to give him
with that
examples.
time. Just a few more seconds, Khalid.
Just a few more seconds. I just want to say to Dr. Muhammad Silaman, the way to conduct dialogue is not by threatening people and killing them. Because you said we will kill. Of course, if me as Sumud go to Sudan,
Okay, thank
I
you,
might be killed.
Khalid. Unfortunately, we're done with questions for now. If I can pass the mic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I think it's all about honesty. It's all about honesty and true will towards what you are advocating for. To start with, I am all for dialogue. I'm all for negotiated peace process, but the first lesson, and that's what I actually said before Dr. Hamdouk's last visit, is that you cannot advocate for true dialogue and your final phrase at every time you come up with an with an invitation or a plan, you ended up with the word illa, siwa, ghair. Meaning, every time you call for dialogue, you want to exclude, by the way, these three words mean except, okay? So, and when I talked about the South African experience, the first lesson that Mandela has taught us is that do not start by except. In fact, people who were benefiting from previous regimes were part and parcel of the solution. And they were made to benefit from the solution. And they were made to believe in that the solution actually is helping and will help everyone. Exclusion is the breeding ground for continuation of troubles, and no stability can be achieved with excluding others, because at the end, everyone here is Sudanese, and he is entitled to a peaceful, inclusive Sudan. This is my message. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is our last speaker. Thank you so much. Rasha.
Okay, I'm going to take
My apologies.
the two questions that directed to me by Asim. I will start with the second one. He said, who put the civilians in this unimaginable suffering situation? I will say it is the two warring parties who are fighting for their own interest and power, neglecting the human beings, neglecting the civilians. The second question, how we can help them? I will say we call the Security Organization and Association in Africa, IGAD, the African Union, the international organization, to put pressure on the fighting parties to stop the war. And definitely stop the war won't be by sending like military soldiers or yes, to stop Burhan and Hemeti from fighting, but to like put pressure on them to open access for humanitarian aid to come in to the civilians, to protect the civilians, to coordinate and to help in reconciliation between the Sudanese local people, regardless their ethnics, their tribe, their regions, that we are Sudanese and we want to keep Sudan safe, united. To help them come out from this situation of like famine and suffering, I'm like asking to provide funds, really. People in Sudan are in need for funds to keep the poor people surviving, providing them with food, with medicine, with this. This can be happen through the local organization who are now working non-stop to help people survive, like the communal kitchen in all the Sudanese cities, the efforts of all the youth, the civil societies, the women organizations who are working hardly in evacuating the people, helping, treating them, providing medicine, provide food, provide water, provide the basic needed human needs. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Khalid, for reminding me of this picture. Let me show it again. Yeah. You see what? Yeah, but I see Sumut only see one half of the picture. They see only the armed guy. They don't see the water delivered to the people. Okay? And yeah, with the gun. Why? Now the question is why? Now just before, sorry, can you please? Now just before why these people who was receiving the bullets from the police because they were fighting against the coup, against Hamdok himself, why these people turn into this? Because, simply, because the RSF occupied their houses. RSF raped their women, their daughters, their wives, their mothers, because they are living in a killing zone. That's why they moved from being receivers of the bullets to holders of guns. Okay? And now you can't tell me that you say no war to somebody who wants to kill you. If he wants to kill you, you have to defend yourself. That's the only way. Okay, and yeah, that's the first part.
If I can ask you to be very brief,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
apologies, very brief, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'll be, but yeah, most of the questions were directed to me. If possible, just give me like at least a minute.
1 minute, 1 minute.
All right. So that's the first part. Now, Dr. Ali mentioned that, Dr. Ali and Mukhlid, I think, both of them, they said, we are missing the point. We are seeking peace. We are not seeking to promote war. Definitely we are seeking peace. But peace, I mean, to achieve peace, you need to understand the root causes of the war. The root causes of this war, I'm not talking about the historical Sudanese war, which the RSF was part of it. I'm talking about this current war. The root cause of this current war, because there armies in the country, RSF and the army, okay? And this was agreed by everybody, even Sumul themselves, even Ta'sis themselves. Okay, so the way forward
10 seconds, please.
Is the way that we used to shout it, us and Sumul and everybody was on the streets, which is the dismantle of the RSF, and the army has to go back to their barracks. But,
Thank you so much. Thank you
no,
so
we
much.
agree on that. But
Sorry.
But we have to understand, and we have to say this very clear. That we have to be very clear that the RSF has to be dismantled.
Okay, I'm going to end it there. Thank you so much. I think you are the last of the speakers. I think the youth are going to take us home here. The youth are going to take us home.
Just one small thing. Just one small thing. It's just a continuation of that question.
You know, can you take it outside afterwards, please?
Just a quick one.
No. Sorry, I'm going to ask you to pass the mic to the lady. Thank you so much. I think there are going to be many conversations happening after this conversation. So, please go ahead.
There were no questions for me, but I have a question for everyone here. There's 3 opposing sides. And I think the journalist at the back, the lovely lady, asked a very important question. What Sudan do you leave for tomorrow's kids? We hear these lovely stories about our parents growing up, playing out on the streets, sense of community, but that's been stripped away from us. That's been stripped away from us as kids, as youth. That Sudan doesn't exist anymore. So do you leave us with a Sudan that is going to be built for a future for us, Or do you leave us with a country that we can never go back to? That we'll just have to tell our kids about stories of how our parents did this. Not even us, our parents did this. Kids who will never actually understand where their culture comes from. Because losing our country means we lose our culture. We lose who we are, Sudanese people. We become a very far-fetched idea. And that's all I have to say, because...
Thank you so much. I'm going to hand back to Professor Osman to close off, but just to say thank you so much to those who are in discussion, to the audience, to those who are both from the Sudanese community and those who are not, like myself. Complex is not even a word that captures what we are trying to comprehend here. But yeah, thank you so much, and thank you to the speakers as well.
Thank you so much, Lutfia. I'm generally not a coward, but I handed over the most difficult task to you today. Okay, and I think you did really well. I think we must prove to our hosts that we are disciplined visitors. The opportunity to comment or ask questions is over. I'm sorry, the time has to be respected. And thank you to our speakers. Truly, truly appreciated each and every one of you. Deep differences, but at least you have made an effort to convey the complexity of the situation in the Sudan. So one of my other heroes, other than Mandela, is Albie Sachs, and I'm very proud to call Albie Sachs a friend. So Albie Sachs said in his book, The Soft Vengeance of a Freedom Fighter. Our transition had been the most willed, thought about, planned for event of the late 20th century. I had once written that all revolutions were impossible until they happened. Then they became inevitable. In our case, the movement from impossibility to inevitability seemed miraculous to many, particularly to those of little faith who could only anticipate racial war and mutual ruin. And Albie Sachs in this segment goes on to talk about how the transition had happened through meetings and more meetings and more meetings. And he writes it in a very powerful way. And he says he got so tired of the meetings that he thought that matters arising and other business, meetings. I used to believe that freedom meant no more meetings, but still they continued. So talking to each other, having these meetings is incredibly important, but we also need to learn, I think as Sudanese, the discipline of that. So violence or aggression in language, in behavior, I think let us all be alert to that. I have avoided today saying any opinion. I've really avoided because I just wanted to be a neutral facilitator, as my hosts has asked of me to be. But I think that this needs to be the start of a conversation where these different opinions need to be around the same table or in the same rooms, and we need to be able to have that engagement without raised voices, without threats, and without anger. That's what I would like to say. So I just want to conclude again, Salaamedia. I think many of us have thanked you, and we truly appreciate it. I would like to introduce Anissa Mzimpaka from Salaamedia, a multi-award-winning social justice activist, to close the session.
Shukran so much, Dr. Amira, and a very good afternoon to everyone. So I have been tasked with doing the vote of thanks, and I've just written it down because I don't want to get stage fright. But as I'm writing it down, I am looking at the kids that are in this room, the future that will inherit not just this country, not just the continent, but the world. we are sitting here and debating the issues that are happening on the continent. And I just look at those children. They do not care about the politics. They just want to be alive enough to contribute to the succession of this continent. And I think every time we engage in such dialogues, can we just keep that in mind? On behalf of Salaamedia, I want to thank each and every one of the speakers and those that gave their inputs for your deep insight that you've shared today under the collective agenda of the African Union, Silencing the Guns. Having voices from diplomacy to activism, academia, journalism, and the lived experience under one roof was our core objective when we were planning such a dialogue. And it's what makes dialogues truly meaningful. One of the speakers mentioned that we meet at funerals, but we fail to sit down and speak to each other. And that is a problem. For a few of you who know my history, my background in this room, but also as someone who studied African diplomacy and whose professional journey has been shaped by both activism and governance, I'm reminded that our work must always place ordinary people at the center and ensuring that they are protected beyond the politics. As a student of African diplomacy, I personally am tired of having heard the stories of this African country fighting and this conflict that happened and that conflict that happened. We want to learn about what Africa's contribution was to this world. And not for the hunter to tell our story, because if we do not tell our own stories, we do have neo-colonialists and the colonizers that will always claim our successes. Hosting the dialogue at this venue is indeed a reminder of what it means to live the legacy of Nelson Mandela. South Africa carries a deep history of pain, but also that of resilience, rising from oppression to the democracy that we all enjoy, and continue to inspire the continent by. But yet we all know too well, which I didn't pick up in this conversation, but that's fine, the enduring influence of external players of imperialism and neocolonialism, where Africa's vast wealth and minerals becomes the very target of this exploitation. We are made to fight each other for our resources that should collectively be our strength. And I'm talking about Africa in general and not limited to Sudan. Thank you to the speakers for availing yourself, Dr. Amira as well. Everybody who we contacted stayed true to your commitment and met under one roof because you understand the power of your words. Thank you to everyone that attended and being part of this dialogue and the effort to keep Sudan in our collective conscious. You are not forgotten. And thank you to the Nelson Mandela Foundation and to everybody for helping us move one step closer to silencing the guns. From Congo to Palestine to Sudan, people matter. And Africa matters, and Africa must unite because we are not our own enemies. Let me close off with the words of Thomas Sankara, who said, "We must dare to invent the future." And the future that we speak about, the future that does not know that their future, unfortunately, is being planned without them. Yes, they want to prosper and contribute to this future, but we are the ones shaping the future of the future. And today's dialogue formed part of us daring. Thank you to everybody that attended, and shukran so much. Can I also ask the speakers to just come up front? Jazakallah, shukran so much.